So far, we have not logged into a switch, we have not configured a switch, we have simply been learning about the theoretical concepts of switching. Now comes the time for us to really dive into configuring a switch for the first time. Before we do that, there are a couple of things that I'd like to tell you about. When you first turn on a switch, imagine that you have just purchased a switch brand new and you just turned on your switch for the first time. And now you have plugged this switch into the network. The switch can be a layer 2 switch. That means the manufacturer of that switch makes it to function only as a switch. It can also be a layer 3 switch. That means not only does the manufacturer manufactured this switch to perform as a switch, but it also made this switch to perform as a router, in which case the switch will be called a layer 3 switch. Regardless of whether it's a layer 2 or a layer 3 switch, when the switch is just powered on and it is introduced to the network for the first time, it doesn't have much information in its memory. It doesn't know the identities of the different devices that are connected to it. But it needs to know the identities of these devices so that it can do its job properly. For that, the switch is going to create what it calls a MAC address table. The MAC address, if you recall, is an address that is burnt into each network interface. That means if any device can connect to a network, whether with a wire or without a wire, it has a MAC address. And that MAC address comes with the device. Now, the switch needs to know these MAC addresses so that it can build the library, or it can build a phone book, so to say, of the location of each device. In that phone book, it would say, device with MAC address 1 lives on interface 1. Device with MAC address X lives on interface X. And whenever it has data to deliver to these devices, it will simply refer to the table that it has built to deliver that traffic. But until it does have that table fully prepared and fully built out, what's going to happen is that it's going to send a broadcast. That broadcast will be sent to all of the devices on that network segment. Now we'll talk about what the network segment means and what the broadcast means. In fact, there is a term that's called the broadcast domain. When the broadcast is sent, it's sent to a broadcast domain. Now, this broadcast will be heard by all of the devices that can hear it. And in fact, all of the devices that are in the broadcast domain, which we will define very soon. Now, as devices hear this broadcast, the right device will answer. You think about it as if the switch says, where is device with the MAC address X? If there is a device with MAC address X, this device will answer. And when that device answers, the switch will make a note of the interface on which the device answered, and it will make a note of the MAC address of the device, and then it will start building its MAC address table. Interface 1 has device with MAC address 1, hypothetically. Now, when the devices stop communicating, after a while, the MAC addresses will age. So this process is called MAC address learning and MAC address aging. Let's log into a switch for the first time and see its MAC address table. I'm going to log into a switch right here. And for that, you have to be on VPN. I am on VPN here. As you can see, my Global Protect is up. Oops, you can't see all my Global Protect, but you can see part of it, right? And it says connected. I'm connected to the Magna Cyber VPN. And because of that, I can open PuTTY. You launch PuTTY, and here you're going to give the IP address of the first switch. In fact, let me flash this up here for you to see the IP address of the switch we're talking about. This switch here is the one that we're going to log into. 172.16.1.2. This is the IP address of the switch, 172.16.1.2. I have shared this diagram with everybody, so you guys have this diagram, you can refer to it. We're going to log into this switch right here. And as we move along, I will give you the IP addresses of the rest of the devices as they become relevant to your learning. So 172.16.1.2. That's what I do here. I keep this on SSH and I hit enter. And I'm going to log in. There is a username and there is a password. You will have one. So there is a command. Before I start doing that, I will tell you about the different command modes of the OSI model. In fact, right after this video, the next video will tell you about the different command modes of the OSI model. But for now, let me show you the MAC address. The command for that is show MAC address table. If you type show MAC address table and you hit enter, it will show you the MAC address table of this switch. You think about it. This switch has a MAC address for each device that is connected to it. Now, you see how it says VLAN all and it says the MAC address? It says the type of the MAC address. It's all and the port is CPU. That means these are the different MAC addresses of the different interfaces on the switch, because the switch is a device that has a bunch of network interfaces, so it has a MAC address for each interface, because each network interface needs to have a MAC address and the device maker sends it with it. But down below here, it gives you some of the MAC addresses that are not static. It says dynamic, and it says what interface they're on. So think about these as the ports of the switch, where you can plug devices into the switch. But these are the devices that are connected onto the switch. You see this one? There is a MAC address here. It says it learned it dynamically. This process of devices wanting to communicate in the switch, sending out a broadcast to find out what the MAC address is and making a note of the MAC address. That's what happened here. And now it says this MAC address lives on this interface. It says this other MAC address, it learned it statically, and it lives on VLAN 1. This MAC address, it learns it dynamically. It lives on this interface. This MAC address it's learned dynamically, and here's the interface that it's on. This one, it's learned statically, and here's the interface that it's on. It's a virtual interface that's called VLAN 9. VL9, VLAN 9. We'll learn about what a VLAN is very soon. Okay, after a while, these MAC addresses, they'll disappear. If they stop communicating for a long time, the switch will edge them out and they will be removed from the MAC address table so that the switch can replace them with the new MAC address of the new device that is plugged into the switch. And if there's no device plugged in, then it will just edge it out. That way it can keep up an accurate library of where the different devices are on the network.